Voices for Children in Nebraska is a statewide child advocacy organization. What that really means is that we gather information about how Nebraska children are faring, and then we try to distribute that information to places where it can make a difference. So decision makers at the state level, the national level, even the city and county level periodically. We produce a report called Kids Count in Nebraska. That is the place that people turn to see all conditions that children are facing. So child abuse, poverty, health care, mental health, everything that could affect children is really addressed in that book. It talks about how many children are living in those circumstances. It talks about whether or not the conditions those children are facing are helpful or difficult for children. But it also gives people ideas and hope sometimes for improvements. We have included in that a policy box and an impact box that talks about what Nebraska has done that might improve conditions, but we also then talk about research and so what if children are living in poverty? What's that really going to mean for their future and most importantly for our future? So the Kids Count report is the foundation upon which we build all of our work each year. We look at how children are faring in the various issue areas. We see where our greatest concerns are, and then we look at what we think we could do to make a difference. And so from that information, we then identify our legislative priorities, our media priorities. We frame our speeches that we're going to give when we speak to Kiwanis groups and church groups and synagogues around those issues that we are the most concerned about each year. We have worked primarily at the state level. So we have a policy coordinator who testifies before the legislature. Every year we follow about 250 bills that could affect children in one way or another. And then of those 250, we identify about 20 that we're going to be more actively involved in. One of the challenges is always to explain what child advocacy is or what advocacy is. And it's really speaking out, using your voice on behalf of someone else. Children obviously aren't in the courtroom. They aren't in the state capitol. More than any population, they need a voice. Now, people still have a hard time understanding what advocacy truly is. And so years ago, I heard a story told by Irving Harris, but it was about two college students who were sitting on the banks of a prestigious university where a river or a stream was running beneath them. And they were sitting there reading and philosophizing about life. And in the midst of that, they all of a sudden noticed a baby floating in the river. And so one of the students took his shoes off and jumped in the river and rescued the baby, wrapped the baby in the blanket that they had been sitting on, and they were trying to figure out who the baby belonged to, and all of a sudden they looked and saw a second baby floating in the river. So the student jumps back in, rescues that baby, again is trying to dry the baby off and figure out what to do, and sees a third baby floating in the river. Well, much to the dismay of the second college student, his friend does not jump back in the river to rescue the third one. Instead, the friend puts his shoes back on and begins running upstream. And the friend yells and says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm going upstream to see who is throwing the babies in the river." When Voices for Children was founded, again, in addition to being independent and statewide, we felt it was important to be a multi-issue organization. There are some organizations in Nebraska that focus just on one issue, child care, organizations or juvenile justice organizations. But we found that when we were at the Capitol or when we were advocating for children, we didn't want to be competing. We didn't want someone to be an effective advocate on behalf of foster children, but have those accomplishments occur at the expense of poor children, for instance. So we were founded upon a mission statement that includes 8 areas. We call those our agenda areas, and it's the mission upon which Voices has been built since its inception. But Voices for Children is really built on the premise of advocating for all Nebraska children, equipping parents and professionals to serve those children in the best way possible, and then inspiring all Nebraskans to rally around all children and provide the same support to all Nebraska children that they would provide to children in their own household, their own neighborhood, their own faith community. So as I look to the future, what I hope Voices for Children experiences is a bit more financial stability so that we can be a very spontaneous and strong respondent to the pleas from children to get involved in new areas that they might need help in.